Welcome to the Lifestyle CEO, a community designed for women looking to take their life into their own hands and redefine what success looks like for them.
I'm Katie, a clinical psychologist and couples therapist. I'm passionate about connecting you with the tools you need to create the life and relationship you want.
And I'm Christina, a marketing and business expert who has built her life around giving herself and those around her the ability to choose what their lifestyle looks like for them.
Together, we have created the podcast for women just like us who are looking to redefine what success looks like for them and enjoy a lifestyle that they love.
Hello, welcome back to the Lifestyle CEO. We're going to be talking about boundaries. If you listened to the last episode, we're very much following on from that. And if you haven't listened to it, go back and listen after this. But we were talking a lot about, defining success on your terms. But obviously with that comes a lot of discussion around how you then actually action that into your life, which kind of then brings in the question of boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think where we were talking last week was around the idea of getting really clear on like what you want your life and your lifestyle to look like. And then obviously it depends really, I guess, in where you are in your life, who that boundary will be with. But I think we all need boundaries, whether that be in a relationship, whether that be in friendships, whether that be because we work in a particular setting or we have partners. We should have some workplace boundaries. What are our boundaries?
Oh my God.
Sorry, just went totally off tangent there. We had a really lovely meeting this week, actually, about our business. We don't need boundaries because we are... No, you know what, actually, when we were talking, one of the things that we did do was establish really clear boundaries. We talked about how much we wanted to work on the podcast. Yeah. So we were really clear about that, what would work with both of our current situations, who would do what. Yeah. We were really clear about that so that there won't be any issue. I mean, of course, like issues arise, but I think it really helped guide like a really clear...
See, I didn't even recognise that was boundary. That was probably little I know.
Sneaking it in. I was like, okay, let's talk about the nuts and bolts, right, of like what we're doing together. And it's really important to have this in all of our relationships, or otherwise we can start to have expectations that aren't met. Yeah. We get disappointment. We get resentful. Yeah. And really, like, quite often we can get caught blaming the other person for not respecting a boundary that they have no awareness of.
And I think, that's where I'm the problem, actually. This is, hi, I'm the problem, it's me, because I'm such a people pleaser. So I would just say yes, like that's absolutely fine. And then in the back of my mind, I'll get really resentful because I'm either burnt out or I'm finding it too much or I feel unheard, but actually I'm not expressing my needs. And what you said earlier about our lunch where we were setting our boundaries, I was like, actually for me, that's we were just being honest, really, weren't we?
We were being honest. And I was actually setting some of your boundaries for you.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, look at this new thing.
Not in a dominating way. That sounded really controlling. But more that I was sort of saying, I think you don't need to do that. I can do that part. Or like, there were some things that you're like, I don't really like that. I was like, well, don't do it.
Yeah, I was
like
shocked. I was like, oh my God, is this how life should work?
Yeah, like we just kind of to and fro. And I'm like, I'm not good at that. And you're like, well, I can help with that. So like that is setting boundaries, right? Boundaries doesn't always have to be. I think when we think about boundaries, the way it's communicated in social media is not actually what we're talking about in healthy boundaries. It's actually more of an aggressive approach. So when we think about this idea of like our needs, we think about passive, assertive, aggressive. So passive is what you were talking about when we're a people pleaser or we don't communicate our needs. And what tends to happen is we become quite resentful in our relationships because initially we're kind of okay with it. And we can be okay with it, say, in our intimate partner relationships for a long time. So some people go like 10 years and it's been a really long time. But then resentment just takes over, right? And then what can happen is you actually flip into more aggressive communication. And aggressive communication is where we're all about our needs, but we're not willing to hear the other person's. Yeah. So we're very much focused on what we need and what we want in the relationship or in a particular situation, but we're not willing to take on the other person's needs and to find that compromise in the middle. Yeah. So passive, where we are not getting our own needs met, we're not communicating, but we're meeting the others. Aggressive, where we're getting our needs met or we're pushing ours forward, but we're not hearing or meeting the others. And then assertive is when we both communicate our needs. So it's both being able to say, hey, this is what I want. Hey, this is what I want. How do we find that place
it's like healthy, right?
In compromising, because it's not always a middle, right? So I think we can get caught thinking like 50-50. So if we went, okay, with the podcast, like you're going to spend X amount of hours doing this, I'm going to spend X amount. No, you've got 1 hour extra. You get caught, right? It doesn't work that way. Whereas like I might have a skill that you don't have, or vice versa. And we're just kind of going, okay, well that works for me. But when we get in that competition of like, it has to be like 50-50, it's just not realistic.
Yeah, that is true.
In relationships of any kind. But it is about understanding that need and what it means to the other person. So if we're thinking about in a relationship, it's obviously understanding that more deeper need behind that. So the values that we might have around something, is it kind of a fundamental need that we just can't negotiate on? So all of that sort of stuff. But then it's kind of compromising from there. And so that, I think a lot of what we actually see on social media for me is more of an aggressive approach.
It is, I was just about to say that.
Assertiveness.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I have this boundary, and if you don't meet it, you can walk out the door. Yeah. It's not a conversation.
Yeah.
And of course there are times in our lives, in certain areas of our lives, where we need to be that clear with boundaries, but it's not the majority of our lives. No. Like there are certain things where we go, okay, this person can no longer meet my needs. I'm going to put a boundary around that, which is really about me and protecting myself. And then we want to have a more firm boundary there. But when we're actually in a relationship that's healthy, where we can meet each other's needs, it is about communicating and finding that compromise in the middle.
And I think there's been so much about this from the workforce, obviously with the Gen Z workforce. There's so much in the news about how they won't compromise on their their needs in the workplace.
Or their workplace requirements.
And then there's this whole quiet quitting phenomenon and stuff. And I think a lot of the time I read that and I was like, yes, fair enough. Like I think we need to be pushing our boundaries more. But again, that came across as quite an aggressive assumption that they should get their needs without actually listening to what might be required from the other side, i.e. from the employer, right?
Yeah.
Because we can't just march in there, stamp our feet and say, I want to work from home 5 days a week, like whatever. Maybe that would be fine, but I think it's, like you said, it's more approaching it like, would it, because of this need I have or this boundary, would it be possible for me to do this? And then finding some sort of compromise where everyone wins, I guess, in some way.
Yeah, it's a win-win scenario. And I think the key there too is that when we don't do that, there are a lot of missed opportunities. So if you storm into your boss's office and you say, I need to work from home 9 to 5 every day, like I'm never coming into the office, that's my requirement. Yeah. Your boss from their standpoint of view is thinking, well, I've got this, once a year thing that you need to attend that's non-negotiable. That might actually be fine for you, but because you're being so firm in their mind, well, that's the boundary. I can't meet that need, so I can't offer you that. Whereas if you went in and said, okay, I need to work from home for these reasons. Yeah. This is what it is about me working from home. It's the fact that I really want to be there to pick up the kids at 5 p.m. or it's that I want to go to the gym in the morning or there's a yoga class in the middle of the day and I can get to it really quickly. From there, if you communicate that and your person you're working for understands that, then they're kind of like, okay, I can see some opportunities with this. Maybe what we could do is like Tuesday, Thursdays, I need you in the office, but we could totally do that in mornings and you can still have that lunchtime thing. But it's having that conversation of like, okay, what do I really need? What do you really need?
And how can we
kind of make that work? Whereas when we get so too black and white with it, we actually miss opportunities to have our needs met.
Yeah, and I think you don't always know what your boundary is. Like, again, I think sometimes we're led a bit by, everyone's like raging against going back to the office a couple of days a week. So we're automatically like, well, that's not right. But actually, there's a lot of stuff you miss by not going into the office, like the culture and the social aspect and just, the fun of it.
And the face-to-face creativity that you can sometimes have, I think.
Brainstorming, if
getting
it's
out the pens and paper.
Yeah. We always get our little coloured pens and our big A3 sheets. It's so amazing. But it's like, on a service-based business, being able to see clients, obviously for you as a therapist, like having client face-to-face is really quite important. But I think, just as an example, this working from home is maybe doing a sort of bit of a disservice from a loneliness and an isolation point of view, and actually getting up and getting out to work maybe once or twice a week, whatever your boundary is around that, still consider that there's compromise. It's not just say black or white. It's like, let's see what the middle ground is.
Yeah. So in couples therapy, I often do this exercise where you'll get them to draw sort of like a small circle and a big circle. And in the small circles, the things that we can't compromise on.
Yeah.
So obviously when we're talking about in a relational sense, these might be big issue kind of stuff. So, you know, in that center is really the stuff that you have no flexibility on. Okay. So it's like, you know, this is my value around whatever it may be. This is the thing that I can't compromise on. But around that is all the areas of flexibility. So say, for example, you might even talk about like which country you're going to live in. So what's absolutely fundamental to me is that I get to see my family once a year, that we have at least 3 weeks together, like whatever it is that goes in the center. What I am flexible around is like where we live, how often we live somewhere, like whatever it may be, any areas of flexibility that you have. And then you start to see, actually, there's quite a lot that I'm flexible on, but these core things I'm not. And so then you can start to identify, well, what's the commonality in the core things that we have? And then where is that room to compromise in that area of flexibility?
Yeah, and I think even doing that exercise, like how many couples would have done that? You know, I think we all just assume that everyone should understand and therefore respect our boundaries. But actually, how often do we share our boundaries?
We don't.
Like, I don't think I do.
Or where it comes from, the deeper needs. So, I mean, obviously we're talking right now about intimate relationship. You might not want to share all your deeper needs with your boss. You can do that. Depends what type of relationship you have. But like in your intimate relationships, your friendships, your family, maybe your intimate partners, it is about them understanding like, and even at that level that we were talking about before, when your boss can understand why, the why behind something, it motivates us to want to meet that need.
Yeah.
So if our partner can understand why this is so important to us, rather than us just saying like,
I want this,
and if I don't get this, we're going to break up. That's not really very motivating.
Yeah.
Whereas if we can sort of talk about, hey, like this is this thing that's really important to me. This is why, this is how I feel about it. Can we talk about it? And these are the areas that I'm really flexible on. Then we start to see change and understanding.
Sounds like a very mature approach to communication, to be honest. One that many of us could probably learn.
Yes. Very important, these skills.
Yeah, but I do think, again, like even knowing what your boundaries are, like I don't think we're really taught that. Like,
no.
How do you think, I mean, I think
it comes back to needs. So I think it's interesting the word boundary that we focus on is like the boundary is important, but that is just really kind of like where you're drawing the line in terms of like your own needs. And really when we're talking about that firm boundary, it's really when things are unhealthy for us, right? Yeah. And I think we start to confuse that with just your needs. It's like,
boundaries got a bit of a bad rep now, hasn't it?
They're just got a bit confusing. So what we are talking about is knowing what you need. So we want to know what we need and communicate from that place. And a lot of us don't know what we need, right? Yeah. We don't know our needs and we need to figure that out.
Yeah.
And sometimes we might be needing something on the surface and there's actually something underneath that's deeper, that's driving that need. And sometimes it requires some vulnerability to identify that and communicate that in the context. So
I guess it's a bit like what we were talking last episode about, you know, defining what success looks like. Actually, it probably comes down to what your needs are first, or at least exploring them within that whole exercise, right? Because I think we can have a picture of what success looks like to us, but actually, again, it might be influenced by outside sources. But when we actually come down to it, like I need peace, or I need a night away every month to be able to focus on my thing. I don't know, whatever it may be. And then that kind of starts helping you draw a picture of what your life would look like if it was truly successful in meeting your needs. So actually, I think that's really interesting. It's not just a Pinterest vision board. It's like, what do I fundamentally need at this stage of my life?
No, it's really interesting actually when you say that Pinterest vision board, because one of the questions that I quite often will say when I'm working with couples, or one of the things I'll say when I'm working with couples is like, make sure you paint a picture of what that looks like, because you want to be really clear, right? But when I'm asking them to paint that picture, it isn't always like a vision, like a Pinterest board. It's more like, how will you feel when that need is met?
Yeah.
What does it look like? What is that person doing to meet that need? And getting really specific, because even with vision boards, like nothing against vision boards, they're great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about like getting to the core of it, is like we can sit on the glossy surface of like, I want this. This is pretty great, isn't it, guys? Like this backdrop here, my partner and I came here like, this is kind of like a kitchen. You know, like I want this, like this look, right? But what is this really about? Like for us, it's about this space to like cook together and entertain, and one person can sit at like the bar stool and we can chat. And, you know, but if we just have the glossy kitchen, it's not actually going to meet the need that we have.
That is so
because
true.
The need that we have is around connection and entertaining and all of those things. We can have the most beautiful kitchen in the world and not meet our needs. Because it's about what is the deeper need of that beautiful kitchen for us.
And this is so interesting because again, it's all the same, right? It comes back to when you set goals that are materialistic and you think like, I want that fancy car, or I want that big villa, or I want that, I don't know, fit husband. I don't know what it is. But like, unfortunately, typically if you look on something like Pinterest, it is all these ridiculously over-edited, glossy, beautiful people, pictures. So you automatically think, oh yeah, put that on my vision board. But like you say, when it comes back to like, but why do I want that car?
Yeah.
Like really it's only ego-led. Or like, but when you start having photos of a beautiful space filled with friends and family, like that's the sort of thing you want on your vision board, because you can actually connect to that feeling.
Yeah.
Like oftentimes you'll have something on your vision board that's materialistic and you won't get it because you have actually no connection to it. And like, really, do you care? Not really. It's just an ego thing. But if you have a beautiful space on your thing, or beautiful pictures of a family camping together, if that's what you want to do, you're very connected to wanting to feel like that.
It's the feeling that brings up that feeling for you.
Yeah, so I think that's really interesting.
Actually, it's made us shift, because when we came here, and we were like, because we've been saving, well, I don't even know if we've been saving, we've burned all our savings being Bali. We were saving for this great kitchen, right? And we've just gone.
What, in Bali?
No, in Australia. Right. So we were like, when we go back to Australia, we're actually not going to get that kitchen anymore, because we've had the total realization that our kids destroy everything. And so if we had that kitchen, it would not be a happy space. It would be a stressful space where we're like, can you please not draw on the counter? We have a kitchen, we have a table at our house in Bali that's destroyed. Sorry.
Don't tell the landlord.
Let's stop watching. We will fix that before we leave. But like, you know, it did make us realize we can't have that type of kitchen for some time yet. We don't actually want it. We want the kitchen where we feel comfortable in. That if our kids draw on things, it's like, whatever. That happens. You know,
you don't really realise that, do you?
You don't, because you get so set on something, and then stepping back from that and just living in Bali's just been living in a totally different way. And I think, I don't know about you, but for us, it's also been like just letting go of so many things, like so many things in Bali just do not work the way that you want them to work, which is totally okay, but you have to let go of it and you have to go with it, or you just become miserable. And so a lot of that for us has been around just like letting go of stuff with the kids as well, like just being like, they're just kids. Like, if it gets ruined, it's fine. Let's just not buy expensive stuff. That's the answer to that one.
And I think a lot of people, like, it does come back to this kind of need to do everything now. Like I used to be so set on having the perfect like house, having the perfect car, having the perfect children, blah blah blah. And I'm just like, but I wouldn't want
perfect children. I purchase them. No, I'm kidding. My children.
I keep looking on eBay, but they're not coming out. Only naughty ones. But now I'm just like, I just love that sort of imperfectness that comes with having children, because it's like, there's drawing all over the wall, and okay, it's a bit annoying, but I quite like it.
But don't you think Bali, like the culture here is part of that too? Because they are so, I mean, at first, like when you have a nanny here, it's sort of like you want them to be, maybe don't let them do that. And then like it actually really shifts your mindset, because you're like, actually, why am I saying that? Does it really matter? Like we can just paint it. And that's their approach to things, is like, it doesn't really matter.
What's the point?
You can just paint it or fix it or do something later with it.
So interesting.
Whereas we get so focused on this idea of like how it should look, or how things should be. And I think Bali has definitely really helped me to let go of a lot of that. Like, you know, we talked the other day about how destroyed our kids' toys.
Oh my God, it's insane.
It's insane, but it's because they get to do whatever they want with them, because it is much more like, as we said, imaginative play. In the last episode, we were talking about that, like just being outdoors Whereas at home, we're indoors.
Yeah.
So everything's a bit more protected.
And
whereas
harder.
here, like things with batteries end up in the pool.
Yeah.
You know, like,
okay.
it's just a part of
that is so true. I was having, because I was
exploring and figuring out.
Yeah.
When you drop your remote control thing at the bottom of the pool, it breaks.
Yeah, Cash loves playing Sink or Float.
Water.
And I'm like, can we not play Sink or Float with all of the electronic goods? Because I'm a bit worried that something might break and actually hurt you. But I've given up on that now. But we were sorting out all the toys the other day because it's just insane how many toys they have. I don't quite know where they come from. But the amount of Lego we have is driving me mental because they're not in a box anymore. And you pay a lot of money for these kits, right? And I think like Logan is old enough to play with them, but Cash just doesn't quite get it. So before you've even got to half of the box, you've lost half the pieces. So you can't make the bloody thing anyway. And it's just like, So, or I'll start making it with them and then they'll lose interest because it takes like 7 hours to make something. So I have got boxes and boxes and boxes of Lego, of which none of them are going to be helpful anymore because you can't make the thing. So I was just like, right, it doesn't matter. Before I had this in my head of like, just making all this beautiful Lego together and being really calm and lovely and having all these Lego figurines that they would play with nicely. And now it's just like, shove them in a basket. Pinterest did me well.
I love that.
But I went to the Lego shop.
We just don't allow Lego, really. And we get it for the birthday presents though, and then it comes in.
Yeah.
It always ends up like that, like the little Lego, because
it's tiny.
The little humans aren't ready for the little Lego.
There was one that Logan got, which was for 5+, and it was perfect. He did it all by himself, and I was like, right, so let's stop buying the 8+. I don't know who's buying the 8+ stuff. But then when I went to the Lego, because I actually really enjoy doing Lego, like it's one of my like calming things.
Yeah.
And I went to the Lego shop and I was going to buy one of the adult ones, but they're like £200. I was like, I mean, it was like this beautiful bonsai tree. I was like, but again, I would do that. Why would I buy that here? Like someone's going to destroy that.
But you could do that for you.
Yeah, I'd do it for me, but
and
where?
put it high up.
Yeah,
like high.
But anyway, that was a real diversion of the topic.
But I think bring us back, but I was enjoying the Lego conversation.
Bring us back.
So I think, what we're talking about with boundaries. I was thinking there is some boundary talk in there, but we're not going there. That's like parenting boundary talk, and we're not doing that on this podcast. But really, that is again about us shifting our ideas, isn't it?
Yeah.
And like what we're looking for and being clear on what we need.
Yeah.
And maybe we don't need Lego.
No, maybe we don't need Lego. Just because all the kids have it doesn't mean we have to have it.
But I think what we're talking about is the idea that getting really clear on your needs, and it can be a bit of a messier process. Like for sure, you can use the Pinterest to like start that process. Because I think that can be a great tool just to get yourself thinking. But also like, I think that's a really good point actually, is when you said like the Pinterest board is always perfect, is like where is a little bit of that messiness like in your life, or where is the connection, like really understanding. I think that is a big point in itself, is that are we talking about boundaries or are we talking about identifying and communicating our needs?
I think needs.
And I think quite often we're talking about identifying and communicating our needs. When we're talking about asserting a boundary, that is after we've had a conversation or when we're in a situation that is unhealthy, where those conversations aren't possible, that we need to get clear on our boundaries, and that's really around protecting ourselves.
Yeah, because boundary, I just think it's got a bit misconstrued again because of social media, where everyone's sort of like, set your boundaries, and it's like this empowering thing, but it's like, that becomes very aggressive, right? Because it's like, actually, if you haven't asserted your need first, then setting an aggressive boundary seems a bit
it's a missed opportunity. Yeah. I almost see it as like, I see so much of my role in couples therapy is helping people to get their needs met. And when we are aggressive, like for sure we might get our needs met in the short term, but it's not going to lead to long-term happiness. And it's going to lead to the end of relationships. Yeah. So it is about like if you want to get your needs met and you want your needs met in the long term, then you need to learn how to communicate and identify your own needs, know what they are, communicate them. That doesn't have to be perfect, because sometimes in the process of communicating your needs, you get clearer on what that looks like. And then be willing to compromise and be flexible. around what it could look like if your needs are met, because there's so many different ways that we can get our needs met. We can get so tunnel vision on like, this is what it has to look like, but there are 10 other ways that we can do it.
It was interesting. I had a conversation when I was at a baby shower on Saturday, and we were talking about how everyone assumes your husband or your partner in life should fulfill all of your needs.
Yeah.
And actually, I was talking to a lot of my friends are married to Indonesians who just, I think, again, because of the cultural differences or whatever, they just don't have the same expectations as feeling like this one person should meet all their needs. So I was talking about sharing books that I really want to be able to talk to my partner about books I'm reading, or, I don't know, newspaper articles, something, or share cooking. I don't know, something like that. And I was talking to my friend and she was like, I just know I've got X friend for that.
Yeah.
And I go to my husband for this, and I go to this friend for this, and I've got all these different people that meet all these different needs for me. And I'm so clear on that I know exactly who I can go to when I need that need met. And I was like, that's actually quite interesting and really amazing that she knows what needs she has, but also who she can go to. And she's almost cultivated those friendships around that. And I think that's amazing. Whereas I think I had assumed that you should find a partner that almost had to meet all of those needs for him to then be the perfect partner or whatever, or to be the perfect couple, which we were talking about earlier. But I like the idea of having, like, knowing what I need as a person, and then like looking at all of my relationships and thinking, actually that person really fulfills that for me, and this person really fulfills that for me.
Yeah.
And not expecting more than that from them.
The reality is one person can know what your needs, because quite often, you know, I think about relationships. Sometimes the flip side of the thing that we love the most is the thing that frustrates us.
Yeah.
You know, because like maybe we love that our partner's like really outgoing, but then maybe we don't love it that it takes us 3 hours to exit a party, or like whatever it is.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So
that.
like there's something they're meaning in that, but then there's also the flip side is that they're not going to meet something else. And that's okay. I mean, obviously in our intimate relationships, we want to make sure that those core needs are met. So the things that are so fundamental to our relationship. But, you know, there's other things like, you know, talking about business, or a type of movie that you love, or sport. This is one of my partner's things. They love sport more. I know we do. But which is not the same passionate level with that, you know. And then there's things that I'm passionate about that he's not the same level with, and that's totally fine. Like we have friends.
And there's
the
compromise, right?
Yeah,
that's the compromise.
But also like there's opportunity in that. Like you know, we've had the conversation where like, I know AFL's not like a thing in your country.
My country. No, it is in my country. That's Bali now. I know about AFL.
Yes, true, your current country.
I don't watch it, but I've heard about it.
But, you know, it's not a thing everywhere. So it's Australian football. And we just had the grand final, which is a thing. Like it's kind of a cultural event in Australia.
Yeah, it's fun.
And so, you know, everyone has like big grand final barbecues. And we did an outdoor thing last year, which was super hot. But this year we did air conditioning, which was amazing.
You went
to so much more comfortable at Forge. But yeah, like one of the things that we've talked about is that he has friends where one partner will go for one team and then the other partner goes for another team.
Wow.
And that sounds okay, but then there's times when the game's on and they have children, and so, you know, there's this like kind of disagreement about who gets to watch it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, the upside is that we never have that disagreement.
Yeah.
You know,
like
you're
not both
you
so
always get to prioritize football. And I love going to the game, don't get me wrong. I love the atmosphere. I enjoy all that, but I'm just not as into it.
Yeah.
And Andy is more the extreme into
it.
But you know, that's the flip side that he loves, is that he never has to question whether he gets to go to a game. Or he gets undivided TV time to watch the games while I hang out with the kids. Or if we're doing that together, but I'm still going to be the person that's
with the kids.
Yeah, that's like, you know, when they last 10 minutes into the game.
Yeah, God,
they're
I
distracted.
can't imagine taking the kids to an AFL game.
Yeah, so you need to, I mean, this is the thing, right? It's like not
That's
one person can meet every need that we have.
And it's not a boundary he's putting up. It's like a need that he has, and you found a compromise to make that work.
Yeah, and the compromise is actually like me meeting him where he's at a lot more, because it's not that important to me.
And I think it's making sure that within the whole relationship, both of your needs are being met, right?
Well,
so it's not just
like
your
I get to go away for nights and go to my cold bath, which is not his thing, but like I get other needs met in my relationship.
That's where it's a healthy relationship. It's where you both understand that you both have needs and you manage to compromise on all of them.
Yeah.
It's not just one person stating their needs and constantly compromising on that, where the other person's needs aren't necessarily being met.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
And I guess that's where, again, it can come back to anything. It's like friendships. We all have had friendships where you are constantly giving, you're constantly compromising, you're constantly trying to support them, and you're not getting it back. And it's like,
that's when the boundary comes in.
Yeah, that's when a boundary has to come in, like, no. Or in a work sense, same sort of thing. So,
and I think the other thing that's misunderstood with boundaries is a boundary doesn't always have to be communicated, and a boundary isn't something that the other person has to respect. So a boundary is for you, and like, of course, in certain circumstances, you will communicate that because you want the other person to respect that boundary. But sometimes there are situations where you know that that's just not going to happen. Yeah. So your boundary is to know that you won't seek that from that person, or, it's a boundary around time, or like whatever it is.
Disappointed when it's not met. Yeah.
But you're setting that boundary for yourself. Yeah. Like you're not setting that boundary for them, you're setting it for you to know, okay, in this scenario, I understand that this person cannot meet my needs, so I need to set a boundary to keep myself safe and healthy and happy and okay. Or it might be a work setting where you are sort of like, there's always requests to work late, so my boundary is I'm leaving at 5:00.
Yeah.
And, that's the boundary that I have in place that's immovable because that's what I need for my home life, whatever it is. But that boundary is like, that's really about you recognizing that you need to put that firm boundary in place to get your needs met.
Yeah, so I think, even this is like a really interesting workbook, right? It's like even coming up with your own needs, because I just don't think people know, like, especially women, unfortunately. I think we get so caught up in like meeting everyone else's needs that you almost think you have to be a bit of a martyr and be like, well, I'll put my needs aside for the next 18 years while I focus on the children. But that's not really healthy for anyone, right? Because even with the children now, I've started expressing my needs as in like, when you go to bed, you need to stay in bed. Mine is because I have to do meetings, right? But actually we all deserve a little bit of downtime before we go to bed. So I think it's, when they get old enough, poor kids, I'm like, but I feel like you can express your needs, and actually expressing your needs to your children presumably teaches them to be able to express their needs, right?
Yeah. So the one difference with children is
parenting.
The one difference with children is definitely we communicating our needs, but we're not expecting our children to meet our needs.
No.
So with a child-parent relationship, it's a little bit different in that, like, so in a, we think about it as like an attachment relationship. An attachment relationship with our partner, it is their role to meet our needs.
Yes.
And it is our role to meet their needs. So it's reciprocal, right?
Yeah.
Whereas with a child-parent relationship, it is about, it's our responsibility to meet their needs, but not.
Fair enough.
But that's not about not communicating them and explaining why these things are important and putting boundaries in place. That's all healthy. What you're talking about. I'm just clarifying that.
Yeah, sorry.
That one little bit. No, but what you were saying was right. Like, it is about like explaining to them, because you're saying, hey, this is why I need this.
Yeah.
This is important.
But I'm not expecting them to meet my needs.
But you're not expecting them to put themselves to bed and
no.
to never get upset about that. I mean, you would like that, but you're not expecting it, right? And it's your role then to help them to learn that boundary.
Also how to express their own needs, I think.
To express their own needs. And I agree, like, it is so important to communicate your needs, because kids don't see this, they don't learn this. And this is why we're going to know what we need, and we have to spend time kind of thinking about it. I think particularly, as you said, as a mum, we can get so focused. So even if before we had children, or it might not even be children, it might be before we took on a particular work role or whatever it is in our life, that we've gone through a shift, that our needs change, and we need to reconnect with, like, what do I need now? Because my 20-year-old self needed something totally different to my 30-year-old self.
And I do think it's an exercise you should do, every like 5 years, or I mean, even every day. There's this really cute thing that someone was doing. I can't remember who told me about it. And it's like every morning, like, you just wake up and say, what do I need today?
Yeah.
And I love that. Like, I need to be productive today. Or it's like, I need to be a mother today. Whatever it is. Yeah. I actually love that, because you set yourself up for success. But I was also thinking, I think there's this thing around, especially in the work environment, when you've got a boss who's older than you, it's like you just automatically think that they're right in their assumptions. And I think, again, expressing your needs can sometimes feel a bit scary, because it's, you know, if they sort of argue or say like, but this is how we've always done it, or this is what it's supposed to be, it can feel quite scary to argue against that. Yes. So again, I think it's, in that setting, getting super clear on why those are your needs and why that's important to you, to be able to explain that so you can come to that compromise. It makes you just feel a bit more confident in that assertion, you know?
Absolutely. And I think then if you do need to set a boundary, it becomes easier to do that because you're so clear on like why that's important to you.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, I've learned a lot in this episode. Thank you.
I've learned a lot too.
Oh, it's really cool. I found it amazing. And I think it really does all come back to just getting to know yourself better.
It does. It does. Like really tuning into who you are. And it sounds so simple, but I want to acknowledge that it's really, really hard.
It is hard.
And, you know, I've sat in rooms with people where it can take so long for them to express a need, to verbalize a need in their relationship, because they've been taught their whole life not to have needs or suppress needs. So it you know, an exercise just like expressing a need to a partner can sound so simple, but can actually bring up a lot for someone in terms of whether it be that they struggle to identify their need, whether it be that they struggle to communicate that need or feel they deserve that need. So if you struggle to identify your needs, you are not alone. I think a lot of us are in that boat and still kind of figuring it out.
I'm in that boat, I think. I'm going to do the exercise. We're going to put a workbook together about this.
So basically this podcast is just about me creating tools for you.
It's my therapy session, which I'm streaming live to the world.
I love that.
But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you guys.
See you next episode. Bye.
You're ready to create a life on your terms. Join us every week and make sure to like and subscribe to keep up to date with new episodes. All the links to keep in touch with us are in the bio.